Let me tell you something up front. If you think your spouse is cheating, you're probably right. At least, that's what I believed. Until I discovered something that made infidelity seem like a fairy tale. My name is Emily Hart, 36 years old, a real estate agent from Des Moines, Iowa, married to Daniel for 12 years, mother of 2, and 3 months ago, I found something in my husband's drawer that changed my life forever. It started with the little things, and it always does, doesn't it? Late nights at work, a new cologne, a password change on his phone, a missed dinner, a glance too long at someone in a restaurant. I told myself I was paranoid, that I was just tired from juggling the kids and my career. But when you live with someone for over a decade, you know when something's off. And with Daniel, everything felt off. We met in college. He was a charming, mysterious type, literature major with a love for Poe and a talent for telling stories that could make a room go silent. I fell hard and fast. He proposed after only 7 months. Looking back now, I don't know if I ever really knew him, but I wanted to believe I did. A week before everything unraveled, I was sitting in our living room, sipping lukewarm tea, while he stood by the kitchen window, murmuring on the phone. He said it was a client. I believed him, or at least I tried to, but the way his eyes darted to me when he thought I wasn't watching, I knew I'm not proud of what I did next. I waited until he was asleep, snuck into his study, and tried his office drawer. It was locked, which was weird, because we never locked things from each other. I could hear my heart in my ears as I grabbed the spare key from above the doorframe. Hands trembling, I opened it. Inside, receipts from restaurants I'd never heard of, a hotel card from a place downtown, and a black leather notebook. I opened the notebook to find scribbled entries, none of them dated. Just page after page of locations, names, odd symbols, and drawings. Terrifying, crude sketches, eyes without pupils, screaming mouths, women with no faces. My stomach dropped. This wasn't a cheating diary. This was something else. I closed a drawer, heart racing, not knowing whether to confront him or pretend I'd seen nothing. I went to bed that night pretending to sleep, feeling his body slide into bed beside me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing everything had changed. The next morning, I couldn't look Daniel in the eyes. He kissed me goodbye like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't been scribbling cryptic symbols and grotesque sketches in a locked drawer. I forced a smile and nodded, my stomach churning. I had no more. So instead of heading to my office, I drove downtown to the hotel on the card I found. The Stonebridge Inn. Mid-range, clean, nothing fancy. The kind of place people go when they don't want to be noticed. I walked into the lobby, feigning confidence. "Hi," I said to the receptionist. "I'm trying to plan a surprise for my husband and wanted to see if he stayed here before. Name's Daniel Hart." The woman typed, barely glancing at me. "Yes, he was here 3 nights last week. Room 218. My heart hammered. I didn't even need to fake the shock on my face. "Did he stay alone?" She hesitated. "I'm not supposed to." I leaned in, lowered my voice. I just want the truth. The woman sighed. He checked in with a woman, blonde, younger than you. I thought she was his assistant or something. I thanked her and walked out. My hands were shaking. Blonde, younger, that old cliché. It felt like my lungs were full of cement. But even then, something didn't sit right. Daniel hated hotels. He was obsessive about his own bed, his routine. This wasn't him. Or it wasn't the version of him I thought I knew. I didn't go home. Instead, I stopped by a cafe across the street to collect myself. I sat by the window, trying to piece it together, the notebook, the drawings, the symbols, and that's when I saw her, sitting at the far end of the cafe, sipping a latte, blonde hair pulled into a loose ponytail, wearing oversized sunglasses, her, the woman from the hotel, and she was staring right at me. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe I was just paranoid, seeing patterns where there were none. But as I stared back at her through the half-empty cafe, my skin prickled like 1,000 cold needles. She didn't look away. Not once. Her sunglasses hid most of her face, but I could still feel it, the weight of her gaze pressing against me like a silent dare. I tried to act normal, stirred my coffee, checked my phone, looked around like I wasn't being studied by a human surveillance camera. But every time my eyes drifted back to her, she hadn't moved. Not her head, not her hand, not even a blink. Finally, I snapped. I stood up, walked straight toward her table, and stopped just a few feet away. "Do I know you?" I asked. She tilted her head slowly, too slowly. Her voice, when it came, was soft, almost robotic. "You shouldn't be here." My heart skipped a beat. "Excuse me." She reached into her purse, and I instinctively flinched. But all she pulled out was a napkin. She unfolded it with unsettling care and pushed it across the table toward me. One word was written on it in scratchy, all-caps ink. "Run." That was it. No explanation. No name. Nothing. I looked back at her, ready to demand answers, but she was already walking away, leaving her untouched coffee behind. I stood there, stunned, watching her disappear into the street crowd like a ghost that never wanted to be found. I clutched the napkin like it was a lifeline. Whatever this was, it was bigger than cheating, bigger than betrayal. Something told me I had just stepped into something I wasn't supposed to see, and I wasn't sure if I could ever step back out. I shouldn't have followed her, but something in me couldn't let go. My mind raced, adrenaline pushing me to act before I lost the trail. I'd seen too much, learned too much, to just walk away. I grabbed my purse and rushed out of the cafe, keeping a safe distance. She was fast, moving with purpose, head down, no sign of hesitation. I couldn't get too close. I didn't want her to know I was following, but I kept her in my sights, tracking her every move. She turned a corner, and I almost lost her in the sea of pedestrians. But then I spotted her again, walking toward a narrow alley that led to a parking garage. My heart pounded as I hurried to follow, my feet moving faster than they ever had before. I reached the entrance to the garage just in time to see her slip through the door, disappearing into the dim, fluorescent-lit space. I stood there for a moment, catching my breath. There was no turning back now. I walked in, trying to keep quiet, but the sound of my heels clicking on the concrete echoed in the empty space. I slowed down, looking around for any sign of her. The garage was nearly empty, but something about it felt off. The air was too still, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I turned a corner and froze. There she was, standing in front of a black sedan, the engine running. She wasn't alone. Another woman stood beside her, tall with dark hair, wearing a black leather jacket. They were talking, but I couldn't hear their conversation from where I stood. The first woman, the one from the cafe, glanced over her shoulder as if sensing my presence. I ducked behind a pillar, holding my breath. "Is she here?" the second woman asked, her voice low and urgent. The first woman nodded. "She's close. I don't know how much time we have." My stomach churned. Who were these people? Why were they talking about me? And why was I so damn close to the truth? I had to know more. But I also had to be careful. If they knew I was here, everything would fall apart. I could feel my pulse in my throat as I watched them. The two women talking in hushed tones beside the black sedan. I was just a few feet away, hidden behind the pillar, and yet it felt like I was miles away from safety. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to leave, to turn around and walk out of the garage before I found something I couldn't undo. But I couldn't. Not now. Not when I was this close. The second woman, the one in the leather jacket, suddenly opened the trunk of the sedan. My heart froze. I had no idea what I expected to find, but the sight of her pulling something out of the trunk was more than I could handle. It wasn't a suitcase. It wasn't a bag. It was a man. A man, curled up on the cold metal floor of the trunk, barely conscious. His skin was pale, his eyes wide with terror. The second woman didn't seem surprised by his condition. She reached in, pulling him out like he was a rag doll. "Get up," she hissed. "We don't have much time." The man barely moved, his hands shaking as he tried to push himself up. Blood stained his shirt, his face bruised and swollen. He looked like he had been through hell. I could see the fear in his eyes as he glanced around the garage, but his gaze never met mine. The first woman, the one I'd been following, stepped closer to him, bending down. Don't worry, she said softly, almost kindly. You're going to be okay. Just stay calm. But something about the way she said it felt wrong. It felt rehearsed. Like this wasn't the first time she'd said those words to someone. I couldn't stay hidden any longer. I had to move. I had to see what was going on. My hands were shaking as I slowly pulled out my phone, ready to take a picture, to get something. Anything that would explain this madness. And then, as if she could sense me, the first woman turned. Her eyes locked on mine, and for the first time since I'd seen her, I felt a chill down my spine. She smiled. A cold, predatory smile. The smile on her face was nothing short of chilling. It wasn't a smile of relief, nor surprise. It was a smile of control. You weren't supposed to see this, she said, her voice calm but dripping with menace. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest, the sound of it deafening in my ears. I wanted to run, to flee, but my feet felt like they were glued to the ground. The man in the trunk still hadn't moved. He was staring at me now, his eyes wide, but there was something else there, something dark and knowing. I tried to take a step back, but the woman's eyes never left me. Go ahead, she said, as if reading my thoughts. Run. Tell your husband. Tell the police. It won't make a difference. My mind raced. What was happening? Who were these people? And why was my husband involved in all of this? I opened my mouth to speak, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. Fear had a grip on my throat, choking me into silence. The second woman, the one with the leather jacket, was now standing beside me, her presence looming like a shadow. She didn't say a word. She just watched me, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. I know you're scared, the first woman continued, stepping closer. But you don't have to be, not if you just stay quiet. Stay out of this. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I couldn't let them intimidate me. I had to find out the truth. I had to protect myself and my family. But before I could respond, a voice from behind me broke the silence. Emily! I turned in shock. There, standing in the doorway of the garage, was Daniel. I couldn't breathe. My mind went blank for a split second. Daniel was standing in the doorway of the garage, his expression unreadable. The woman in the leather jacket didn't flinch. She just nodded once, as if she'd been expecting him all along. But the woman I had been following, the one who'd been so cold, so terrifying, smiled again. But this time, it wasn't a smile of warning. It was one of approval. Did you really think you could just leave? She asked me, her voice like ice. Did you think you could just walk away from this? I turned to Daniel, my heart racing. What is this, Daniel? What's going on? Who are these people? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He just stood there, his eyes locked on mine, but it was like he was seeing a different version of me. The woman in front of me, the one who had told me to run, reached into her bag and pulled out something, handing it to him. Daniel took the object and finally spoke. I never wanted you to find out like this, he said quietly. The words cut through me like a knife. Find out what? What had he been hiding? What had been going on all this time? Why had he been so distant? So secretive? Daniel, I whispered, my voice trembling. Please, I need to know. What's happening? He looked at me with a mix of pity and guilt. Then, without another word, he walked toward me. But before he could get any closer, I stepped back. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The man in the trunk, the bloodied, bruised man I had seen earlier, had started to stir. He wasn't unconscious anymore. He was alive, and that meant the truth I had been dreading was about to be revealed. Daniel turned to the two women, nodding slightly. It's time, he said. She needs to know everything. I stood there, frozen, as the weight of his words sank in. Everything? What does that mean? Your husband, the first woman said, her voice cold and calm, is not who you think he is. Your husband isn't who you think he is. The woman's words echoed in the garage, and for a moment, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. I turned to Daniel, my voice shaking. What does that mean, Daniel? What are they talking about? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked down at his feet, almost like he was ashamed. Then he looked up at me, his eyes full of regret. "I never wanted you to be part of this," he said quietly, his voice hollow. "I never wanted to bring you into any of it, but it's too late now." I took a step back. What had I got myself into? The man in the trunk, the cryptic messages, the women in the parking garage. They were all pieces of a puzzle I hadn't even begun to understand. "Daniel, please. I need the truth," I pleaded, my heart racing. "What is this? Who are they?" Daniel turned to the woman who had been speaking. "You can tell her. She deserves to know." The woman smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It was a smile of calculation, like she had been waiting for this moment. "Fine," she said, her tone never faltering. "You've already come this far, Emily. I suppose it's time to tell you." She walked over to the man in the trunk, who had managed to sit up by now, though he was clearly weak. His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them that I hadn't seen before, recognition. The woman pulled him to his feet, and as he stumbled out of the trunk, she began to speak again. "Daniel isn't just your husband," she said slowly, the weight of her words sinking into the cold air of the garage. "He's involved in something much bigger, something dangerous." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean? What is he involved in?" The man, still wobbly, took a step forward. His face was battered, but his eyes were sharp. "It's not just infidelity, Emily," he said, his voice rough. "It's organized crime." My legs felt like jelly. I couldn't move. The words organized crime hung in the air like a death sentence, each syllable heavier than the last. I looked at Daniel, but his face was unreadable. The man in front of me, the one who had been in the trunk, wiped a trickle of blood from his lips, his eyes never leaving me. "Daniel's not who you think he is," the man repeated. "He's a player in a much bigger game, and we've been trying to protect you from it." I shook my head, trying to piece it together, but nothing made sense. "What are you talking about? How long has this been going on? Why didn't you tell me?" My voice cracked with frustration. Daniel's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment, I saw something that resembled guilt in them. But it was quickly replaced with something else, something cold and distant. "I never meant for you to get involved," he said, his voice strained. "I tried to keep you away from this life, from the dangers. But it's too late for that now. I can't protect you anymore." The woman who had been speaking to me earlier stepped forward. "You don't understand, Emily. Daniel's been working with us for years. He's been undercover, trying to bring down a criminal syndicate. But it's dangerous. It's bigger than you know." I felt the ground beneath me shift. My breath caught in my throat. Daniel was undercover? That explained so much, and yet it explained nothing at all. Why hadn't he told me? Why hadn't he trusted me enough to let me in on the truth? "You've been lying to me," I said quietly, almost myself. "For how long?" Daniel flinched. "For years," he whispered. "But it was never about you. I couldn't let you get involved. This world I'm in, it's dangerous, Emily. People die." The other woman, the one with the sunglasses and cold smile, nodded. "People like him," she said, gesturing to the man who had been in the trunk. "People who get in the way." I turned to the man, still struggling to stand. "So what? Is this what this is all about? A man in a trunk? What's going on, Daniel?" The man looked at me with haunted eyes. "Your husband, he's a target. And now, so are you." The words hit me like a freight train. "A target? You're telling me that I'm in danger now? Because of him." I looked at Daniel, my heart breaking all over again. How could he have kept this from me? All these years, I've been oblivious of the dangerous life he was leading, thinking the worst was simply infidelity. Now it was so much more. It was life or death. Daniel stepped forward, his face etched with pain, his voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want this for you, Emily. I swear. But you're caught in it now. We both are." The man who had been in the trunk, the one who looked like he'd seen more than his share of hell, shifted his weight. The syndicate wants him dead. And anyone who's close to him, too. I felt my breath catch in my throat. The world around me seemed to close in, the walls of the garage feeling smaller, suffocating. I had no idea what I was really dealing with. The woman in the leather jacket stepped closer, her voice sharp. This is bigger than a husband's secret. Daniel's been feeding intel to the FBI, trying to bring down a major operation. But he's exposed now. If the syndicate gets to him, they'll kill you both. I stared at Daniel, trying to process the weight of it all. So, you've been working with the FBI? For how long? And all this time, I had no idea. You lied to me. I thought I was the one you were hiding from, but it was them. This whole time, you were lying to protect me, and now I'm in danger. Daniel's eyes were full of regret, but there was something else in them, determination. I know I should have told you, but it wasn't just about protecting you from the truth. I was trying to protect you from the world I'm in, the one you just found out about. It's too dangerous. I shook my head, the anger boiling inside me now, mixed with a deep sense of betrayal. So, what now, Daniel? What am I supposed to do? What's going to happen to us? The first woman, the one who had given me the cryptic warning earlier, stepped in, her tone surprisingly calm. You have two choices. You can walk away. Take whatever life you have left and leave all of this behind. But if you stay in this life with him, know that it's a fight you can't back out of. You will have to stay vigilant. There's no turning back once you've crossed this line. I felt my knees weaken. Walk away? How could I leave Daniel after everything? He was my husband. But could I really live with the danger that now loomed over us both? I turned to Daniel, my heart torn between the love I still felt for him and the fear that had taken root in my chest. What do you want me to do, Daniel? You've already put everything on the line for me, but now what do I do? Daniel reached for my hand, his grip tight, desperate. Stay with me. Don't leave. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. I looked into his eyes, the man I thought I knew, the man who had just admitted that everything had been a lie. But I loved him. I had to choose. I stood there, frozen, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened, but his touch felt like a warning. His words echoed in my mind. Stay with me. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that we could still get through this, that we could rebuild our life together. But everything I had just learned was like a wrecking ball shattering the foundation of everything I thought I knew. You don't have to do this, I said softly, pulling my hand away from his. You don't have to protect me from the truth anymore. I need to know everything. Daniel, no more lies. He looked at me, his eyes full of pain and regret. Emily, please. You're not safe here. If you leave now, you can get out. Go somewhere safe. But if you stay with me, it's going to get worse. I promise you that. The weight of his words crushed me. This wasn't just about us anymore. This was about survival. But could I really walk away from everything? From him? The woman who had been guiding the conversation stepped forward again, her voice cold and calculating. This is your last chance. Walk away while you still can. Once you're in, there's no turning back. I looked at her, my eyes filled with disbelief. What are you trying to do? Push me out of my own life. She stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Daniel is a target now, and if you stay with him, you'll be one too. There's no escaping this. It's a war, and it's coming for both of you. A chill ran through me, and for the first time, I realized just how serious this was. I wasn't just caught in a lie. I wasn't just the wife of a man who had been hiding things from me. I was a part of something much bigger than myself. A war. But what could I do now? I was already in too deep. How could I run away from Daniel after everything he told me? I don't care what happens to me, I said, my voice shaking but steady. But I can't leave you. Not now. Daniel's eyes softened, but the weight of his burden was clear. You don't understand. You can't stay in this life. Emily, it's too dangerous. The man who had been in the trunk, the one who had started this entire nightmare, suddenly stood up, pushing past the women who had been guiding us through this madness. He was covered in bruises, his clothes torn, but there was fire in his eyes. This isn't about choice anymore, he growled. The syndicate is closing in, and if they get to him, if they get to you, there's nothing left. We need to act fast. I turned to Daniel, my chest tight with fear. What do we do now? For the first time in what felt like forever, Daniel looked uncertain. We fight, or we run. But either way, it's going to get worse before it gets better. The woman in the leather jacket scoffed, her arms crossed. The longer you wait, the more dangerous it gets. You don't have time to debate. You need to decide now, Emily, now. My heart raced as the silence in the garage became unbearable. I looked at Daniel, his face torn between love and fear. The man who had been in the trunk was staring at us with an intensity that made the air feel thicker. The women, who had been guiding us through this nightmare, waited with calculated patience, as if this moment had been planned long ago. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but stand here and let this nightmare consume me. But there was no escaping it, no turning back now. The woman in the leather jacket spoke again, her voice laced with urgency. You don't have time to think about it anymore. The syndicate is already on their way here. We're out of time. I looked at Daniel, searching for something, anything that could give me hope. His eyes were wide with panic, but there was a steely resolve behind them. I'm not going to let them hurt you, Emily, he said, his voice firm. I'll protect you. I won't let them take you from me. I wanted to believe him. I did. But the truth was, he had already let me down. He had kept me in the dark for so long. And now I was caught in the middle of something I didn't understand. The syndicate. A world of crime, lies, and danger. We don't have a choice, the man from the trunk said, his voice hoarse. They're coming. If we don't act now, we're all dead. The woman in the leather jacket moved toward the door, peeking outside as if she was expecting someone. I'm going to buy us some time. You need to decide what you're going to do. Now. I could hear the distant sound of cars approaching. My pulse quickened. The walls seemed to close in around me. I had never been in a situation like this before. The thought of running, of leaving everything behind, was tempting, but I knew deep down that I couldn't just walk away, not without knowing what would happen to Daniel. I'm staying. I said, the words coming out of my mouth before I could stop them. I'm staying with you, Daniel. Whatever happens next, I'm with you. Daniel's face softened, a flash of relief crossing his features. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm so sorry for everything. I should have told you the truth sooner. But we don't have time for that now. The woman with the cold smile nodded at me, as if acknowledging my decision. Good. Then let's make sure you're ready. The storm is coming. I turned to face Daniel. He had been living in a world of shadows, but now I was part of that world. And together, we would have to face whatever came next. As the sound of approaching cars grew louder, the finality of our situation hit me. There was no going back. We had to fight, or we had to run. But in this moment, standing beside Daniel, I knew that running wasn't an option. The first car skidded to a halt outside the garage, its engine roaring. Time was up. The door to the garage slammed open, and the sound of heavy boots hitting the concrete floor made my heart race. I turned to Daniel, who stood in front of me, his body tense with anticipation. The man from the trunk had already moved to the side, preparing for what was coming next. The woman in the leather jacket stood near the entrance, her eyes narrowed, scanning the darkened streets outside. They're here, she said, her voice cold as steel. I felt a chill run through me. The syndicate, the people who wanted Daniel dead, had finally arrived. Without a word, Daniel grabbed my arm, pulling me behind him as he moved to the back of the garage, where the exit was. The man who had been in the trunk followed closely behind, his eyes darting around, alert to every sound. The woman in the leather jacket was already at the door, her hand resting on the handle, waiting. What do we do now? I asked, my voice trembling with fear. I wasn't sure if I wanted the answer, but I needed it. The moment had come. We were no longer just players in this game. We were targets. We fight, Daniel said, his voice low but steady. We take them down before they can take us out. My heart skipped a beat. Fight? Was that really the only option? Before I could respond, the woman opened the door slightly, peeking out. She quickly closed it, a sharp look of concern on her face. They've got reinforcements. We don't have much time. We need to get to the car now. Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed my hand and started toward the exit. But just as we reached it, the sound of gunfire erupted from the street. The door rattled with the force of the shots, and for a split second, everything seemed to freeze. "We've got to go," the woman shouted, her voice filled with urgency. She pulled open the door, revealing a car waiting outside, its engine running, ready for a quick getaway. I felt my stomach drop. This was it. There was no turning back. Daniel shoved me into the car, his face set in grim determination. The man from the trunk jumped in after me, and the woman in the leather jacket took the driver's seat. The moment the door slammed shut, the car peeled out of the garage, speeding into the night. Gunshots echoed in the distance, and I could hear the roar of more cars chasing us. My breath was shallow, my heart pounding in my chest. "We're not out of the woods yet," the woman said, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as she maneuvered through the streets. "The syndicate won't let us go that easily." I glanced over at Daniel. His eyes were focused, but there was a flicker of something else. Fear. It was the first time I had seen it. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to steady my breathing. "What's the plan?" Daniel turned to me, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to get to the safe house. It's the only place we'll be safe for now." The car swerved around a corner, narrowly avoiding a speeding truck. The lights of the city flashed by in a blur, but I couldn't keep my mind from focusing on one thing: the truth. The truth about Daniel. The truth about the life we had been living. Was this really the life I was choosing now? A life on the run, constantly looking over my shoulder, fighting for survival? Just as I thought we might escape, a car pulled up alongside us, blocking our path. The driver's window rolled down, and I saw the face of one of the men from the syndicate. "Get out of the car," he shouted, his voice laced with malice. "You're not going anywhere." The woman in the leather jacket slammed her foot on the accelerator, the engine roaring as she attempted to shake them off. The car swerved again, but they were closing in fast. I looked at Daniel, my heart in my throat. "What now? What do we do?" Daniel turned to me, his eyes cold with determination. "We fight," he said, pulling a gun from under his jacket. "We don't let them take us alive."